In the big generational debate, we hear a ton about the boomers and we hear all about the millennials. But what about the 50 million people who were literally sandwiched right in between them? All right, let's get into the story of Generation X. They're the quiet, often forgotten generation that, well, just might be responsible for the world we live in today. Yeah, they've been called America's neglected middle child. And it kind of makes sense. They're this demographic bridge between two super loud, massive generations. You've got the huge baby boom on one side and the even bigger millennial echo boom on the other. So, because of that, they've just often been overlooked. And hey, when they did get noticed, it was usually through this lens of stereotypes, a lot of which came straight out of 90s pop culture. You know the labels: slackers, cynical, disloyal, apathetic. And for a lot of people, those labels have stuck around for decades. But here's a thought. What if that whole narrative is just wrong? What if this so-called forgotten generation wasn't slacking off at all? What if they were quietly in the background, building the very foundations of our modern digital world? To really get Gen X, you have to understand the world that made them. And it wasn't a world of stability, not at all. It was a world of constant, kind of jarring change. I mean, their formative years were basically a highlight reel of institutions failing and the world turning upside down. They watched the Iran hostage crisis unfold, they saw the Challenger space shuttle explode on live television, they lived through a massive stock market crash, and then saw the Berlin Wall come down. These weren't just distant headlines. These were the events that shaped their youth. And yeah, it bred a pretty healthy dose of skepticism. And it wasn't just world events. At home, things were changing dramatically too. Divorce rates shot past 50%, more moms were entering the workforce, and Gen X became the original latchkey kids. They'd come home to an empty house, microwave their own snacks, and get their homework done with nobody looking over their shoulder. This wasn't neglect. It was the beginning of their trademark independence and self-reliance. They also had a front-row seat to the great corporate downsizing of the 80s. They watched their parents, the loyal organization men, get laid off after decades with the same company. This comic from back then just nails it. The whole social contract, that idea of a job for life, was completely shattered right in front of them. So all of this, the chaos, the independence, it put them in this really extraordinary position. They became the generation that was the bridge between the old analog world and the brand new digital one. Now, seriously, think about it. They are the last generation that remembers what life was actually like before the internet. They know the pain of making mixtapes on cassettes before they could just build Spotify playlists. They had to use encyclopedias for homework before they could just Google it. They lived through that horrible screech of a dial-up modem. And then they went on to build cloud computing. Having this dual citizenship in both worlds made them incredibly adaptable. And this is where that whole slacker myth just completely falls apart. That same independence that made them latchkey kids also made them incredible innovators. They weren't looking for the spotlight. Nope. Gen Xers were in the garage building the future. Google? Co-founded by Gen Xers. YouTube? Yep, them too. AWS, the cloud computing backbone of the modern internet, launched under Gen X leadership. Tesla's whole revolution? Scaled up by a Gen Xer. They didn't just adapt to the digital world, they literally invented it. So, after watching the old 9-to-5 model completely fail their parents, Gen X brought a brand new philosophy to the workplace. They basically rewrote the rules for what a career and success even mean. They swapped blind loyalty for something a lot more practical, something experts call just-in-time loyalty. And no, it's not about being disloyal. It's a really clear-eyed contract that says, look, I'll be an amazing, dedicated employee for as long as this job is good for my career and my life, but I'm not expecting a gold watch at the end of it. And this isn't just some theory. The U.S. Office of Personnel Management put it perfectly. Gen Xers are not against the idea of a long-term job. They're just deeply skeptical that one actually exists anymore. That's not cynicism, that's realism. So what do they value? Well, basically everything we now think of as a modern workplace. Work-life balance wasn't some trendy buzzword. It was a direct reaction to their workaholic boomer parents. They demanded autonomy because, well, they were raised to be independent. They value what you can do over how long you've been there, and they pretty much pioneered the idea that results matter way more than just showing your face in the office. Okay, so fast forward to today. As Gen X moves into their peak earning years, they are facing this unique and absolutely immense pressure. They've become what we call the sandwich generation. This means they are literally squeezed in the middle. They're financially and emotionally on the hook for raising their own kids, while at the exact same time, they're responsible for taking care of their aging boomer parents. You can imagine the kind of incredible financial stress this creates. And the numbers, they really reveal this pressure. First up, a staggering 63% of Gen Xers are carrying a credit card balance from one month to the next. They're just struggling to get ahead of their debt. On top of that, you've got 51%, more than half, who don't have enough savings to cover even one unexpected emergency expense. That leaves them incredibly vulnerable. And finally, a full 50%, half of them, report that they find it difficult just to meet their monthly household bills on time. You put all that together, and the financial pressure is just, it's very, very real. So when we step back and look at the whole picture, what is the true legacy of this quiet, pragmatic, and really pressured generation? See, their legacy isn't some viral hashtag or a big protest movement. It's the digital infrastructure that we all use every single day. It's the modern workplace's focus on flexibility and balance. They were the silent disruptors, the ones who cared more about solutions than getting the credit, and they're the ones who built the bridge from our analog past to our digital present. Which really leaves us with one last big question. In a world where it feels like the loudest voices get all the attention, what have we missed by not listening to the generation that just preferred to get the work done? And what other silent disruptions might be happening right now, right under our noses, that we're completely overlooking?